Hello folks, Dean Curry here, Cooking Healthy for You, our cooking show on our YouTube channel, Rising Star Enterprises for Wellbeing. Today we're going to cook one of my favorite meals. It's going to be a Texas style brisket. And I use the word Texas style loosely because really you're supposed to, in Texas style, you're supposed to smoke it, but we're working here in New York City in our kitchen. And so we are going to oven roasted, I say Texas style loosely, really Texas flavoring, but for lack of a better word, Texas style because the flavoring is going to be Texas. And it's going to come out absolutely fantastic. Now, brisket, as a lot of you know, is involving two muscles, the point and the flat. The point is with the decal in, that basically means there's more fat involved. Probably like to cook it that way, but you know, this is Cooking Healthy for You. This is a health show, so we're going to go with the flat, also called the first cut, and it's much leaner. I took the liberty of using a dry rub. I'll read off the ingredients I used there for the dry rub. Basically, you can use a brown sugar. I prefer to basically take the meat out and use a honey, where I put honey on around it, on my hands and around it. And then we basically, I like to take a little oil, olive oil, and I put that over the honey, and then I take my dry spices because I want the dry spices to really stick to it. You don't have to do it. I just like my spices to really stick to the actual meat, so that's basically how I do it. And I use 2 tablespoons of the following: garlic powder, onion powder, dry mustard, paprika, salt, basically 2 tablespoons, and then I use a half a tablespoon of thyme, basil, dry basil that is, and you can use cumin. A lot of people like that. I just don't really like cumin, so I don't put that on. And you can use a little chili powder, which I basically use, and that's pretty much it for your dry powder. Now, basically, I'll put this down here for a second. Basically, there you go. Basically, you have you want to put this in the refrigerator for about 24 hours, so it sort of marinades, and then you basically take your here we go. You basically take the fat side on the bottom and you basically put it into your pot, and there we go. It's a little tricky today. There you go. Bottom side flat, and you put it in, and you're going to put that into your oven, and you want to seal it. So you basically, I mean, I have a pretty good sealer here that I just put on top, and that's basically it. You're going to basically put it in the oven. If it was a 5 to 8 pounder, you're talking about 7 hours. This is about 3 pounds, slightly under. So we're going to go about 4.5, 5. You want it to be about 195 degrees in the middle. The last hour or so, this is about 3, probably put in about 4.5 hours or so. Once it reaches 175, you basically have about an hour left, and you flip it, you know, at that point, and that's pretty much it. So that's pretty much it. We're going to put this in, and we'll be right back with the special sauce that we're going to put on top. Hello folks, we're cooking here at Cooking Healthy for You. We're going to make our sauce. Some people call it a mop sauce for our brisket, and we're going to go right to it. So let me just show you what I'm doing here. Basically sauteing about a 1/4 cup of red bell pepper and onion. I'm sorry, not onion, red bell pepper and celery. And we're going to put it into just a regular sauce. You could get a canned sauce, a can of tomato sauce. You could do it from scratch, but here we're trying to teach people how to cook with cans that they have during this time in their cupboard. So I would probably just use a can of tomato sauce, put that in, and let's see if we can see what's going on here. Then we're going to take a can of tomato paste. Okay, so tomato paste. I wouldn't use the whole can. I mean, this is like a 4-ounce can. I'd probably use, let me just make sure I have my glasses on here. This should be about a 6-ounce can. I'd probably use about maybe half of it, so maybe 3 ounces. You know, the paste just gives it a little thickness, you know, and a little flavor. I like paste. And we're going to put that in to our sauce, and you have about a cup of sauce. Then you have about, could use beet broth. This is beet broth. See, beet broth, and you could use about a cup and a half. That's about a cup and a half. And then I'd like to take about 3/4 of a cup of vegetable broth. So now you have vegetable broth. And notice I'm not measuring. I mean, you pretty much know what a cup and a half and 3/4 are. If you don't, after all the years I've been cooking, you're in a little bit of trouble. I did put olive oil in already to start to saute, so you don't want to overdo it with the olive oil. Worcestershire sauce. Can you say that 10 times real fast? Worcestershire sauce. And we put that in, and about 2 tablespoons, maybe a little bit more, about 2.5. It's very tasty. You have the olive oil. Then you take about your white wine vinegar, and you put about 3 tablespoons in on that. Maybe a little less. Maybe it's about 2.5. It's probably good. Then you take some apple cider vinegar, which is rather strong. So I probably put that's about a little more than a tablespoon, about a tablespoon and a half of that. I like to take Italian dressing and put a couple of tablespoons of that in. It just gives it a nice flavor, okay? And then you can take this balsamic vinegar. You don't have to use much, just maybe a tablespoon, okay? You have rice wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar. Then I like to take about 2 tablespoons of honey. It gives it a little bit of, you just get a pure honey, you know. And then I like to take a little bit of dry mustard. See, dry mustard. It just gives it a nice flavor, you know, about a tablespoon. You have to use much. And then we're going to put in some paprika. I guess you could get about a teaspoon of paprika in there. Make sure it's getting in there. Yeah, paprika is really good. Could add some of this later. I'm going to leave the paprika there because I might add a little bit more. And then you could use real garlic and real onions, but we're just going to use garlic powder, about a teaspoon. And actually that's about a tablespoon of onion powder. Then we're going to take a little bit, about a tablespoon of basil. Basil's like, it just gives it a nice flavor. So you put about a tablespoon of basil in, and you take a couple of bay leaves, all right? A couple of bay leaves, they won't stay in there forever. See if I can get a little bit of a bigger one. A couple of bay leaves, there you go. Then you're going to mix this all together, all right, like so. Mix it all together, there you go. And we're just going to heat it up. And I'm probably going to add a little bit of flour to it because, you know, you need to, about 2 tablespoons of flour. I'm just going to let it cook first, heat up, and then I'm going to add about, you could use all-purpose flour. And you're only putting a couple of tablespoons in, so it's not that fattening. Well, we want to just get this a little warm. We'll put the flour in, and I'll show you how it thickens up. And that is pretty much your mop sauce. Hello, okay, so we're going to make a vinaigrette, for our beet salad. I'll fix my hat here for our beet salad. And we're just going to show you how to do that. It's actually quite simple. I'll show you the quick way to do it. So get this down here. There you go. First you want to get some olive oil. A couple of tablespoons. Alright, there you go. A little olive oil, good. Put your stuff off. A couple of tablespoons, actually about a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. It's about a tablespoon. It's very strong balsamic. And what you want to do is then take about a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. Okay, it just gives it a really nice flavor. Then you take your maple syrup, which is about, I don't know, about a tablespoon and a half of maple syrup. And you could actually do a half a tablespoon of honey. Just gives it a nice flavor. Moving right along, a little salt, about a half a teaspoon. You don't need much salt. It's occurring in some of the other things. About a pinch of pepper, not much. Then you have your Italian seasoning. So you start off with a little parsley. Okay, a little parsley. I always like to move my stuff off to the side when I'm done, so you don't repeat. A little oregano. All right. Then you have your basil. A little basil. I really love basil. Okay. And moving right along very quickly, you're going to have a little garlic powder. I wanted to see if we had some onion powder. I believe we do. We do. Little onion powder as well. Okay. And we're talking about, you know, a little bit of more than a pinch, maybe a half a teaspoon. And then you're going to take ground mustard. It's dry. And, well, you can just kind of have about it's pretty strong. So maybe a half a teaspoon of dry mustard. You put that off to the side. Okay, you have your whisker here. Here's your whisker. And you basically move that stuff around. Okay? And that is basically your vinaigrette. Doesn't that look fantastic? You don't have to mix it that much, and there you have it. And that's going to go over the kale and Brussels sprouts in the butternut squash and beet salad. Okay, so basically what I added was olive oil. Here's the beets: olive oil, salt, balsamic vinegar, okay, a little pepper, and a little thyme. I'll go over that again, and squeezed orange. We have salt, olive oil, salt, balsamic vinegar, a little black pepper, a little thyme, and then I squeeze a little orange on top. We're going to mix that up, and we'll be right back with the butternut squash topping. So for the butternut squash topping, we're going to do something very similar. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil, teaspoon, not much. You don't want to put that much oil in your body. A little bit of salt, okay. A little bit of balsamic vinegar. Some of these flavors are kind of coming back, okay. A little bit of pepper. You know, just enough to cover. I mean, you're not overusing these things. Thyme. We're not going to use actually thyme on the butternut squash, but we are going to squeeze a little bit of an orange on it. Orange just has great flavor. I love orange. And I think we're going to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar, okay, to your butternut squash. Let's remember that. And then we're going to add a little onion salt, okay. Going to add a little garlic salt. Moving pretty quickly here. garlic salt. Then we're going to add a little bit of oregano. Basically your Italian seasonings. Okay. Then we're going to add a little bit of parsley. Okay. Parsley has great color too. Nice bright green. Then we're going to add a little bit of basil. Okay. Just sort of covering it. We're going to mix this up, the beets and the thing. We're going to put them both basically on the same tray, and we're going to cook them at 400 for about a half hour. Okay, be right back. This is basically how it should look before it goes in the oven, 400 at 30 degrees, 400 for 30 minutes. Almost forgot, we have to put a little bit of rosemary on the butternut squash, and we're going to put some sage, but we're not going to leave the sage on. It's just sort of for like flavoring. I'm going to drop it on top, and the sage will come off later, and you're going to cover it. Okay, but it's just kind of nice to do it that way. Okay, and we will be back. We're going to have pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. Pumpkin seeds take a little longer to basically cook, and you don't want to do much because don't forget we have the balsamic vinaigrette. Pardon me. That's going to go over the beet salad. But so you don't want to do much. Just a very little, not even a half a spoon of olive oil. Very, very little, half a spoon. And I try to go very light on olive oil because it's on a lot of different things, and just a little bit of salt. Okay, just a sprinkle. Okay, now these take twice as long, so we're going to cook them, you know, since everything's going in around 400. I usually like to cook these around 300. I'll probably leave them in for like 20 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes on the sunflower seeds, and maybe 20-25 on the pumpkin seeds, and they'll be nice and roasted. Okay, we're basically cooking the spinach right now, and it's really not much to it. You can get chopped spinach in the package. You put, I guess, a little over a cup of water for each package, 10-ounce package you put in. You heat it up. This is for the cream spinach, and once it starts to boil, which it is right now, you cover it, you lower the flame to a simmer, and you cook it for about 6 to 8 minutes. And that's that, and we will be back with the rest of the cream spinach. And don't forget, when you're done with this for 6 to 8 minutes, you're going to drain it in a strainer, and then you're going to put it off to the side, and we're going to make our little cream spinach sauce and then add the spinach to it afterwards. It's important to note that we're going to add Parmesan cheese, probably a third of a cup, maybe a little bit more than a third, maybe close to 2/3, or about that. And then we're going to use blue cheese, but blue cheese is very strong, so you want to do like 1/8 of a cup of blue cheese, and then I'm going to add what I like, gives a little bit more zest, is about 1/3 of a cup of goat cheese, and we add them all together, and it tastes out of this world. Okay, so here we go. One last time. We have a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. Okay. We're going to put onion powder. You could use real onions and chop them up, but you know, this is a big meal. Put about a half a teaspoon of that, a half a teaspoon of garlic, or a teaspoon, depends on how much you like it. We're going to put a little bit of salt. Okay. These are just sort of like dabs. We're going to put a little bit of nutmeg, which tastes really good. Not much. Nutmeg is very strong. Gives it a nice, you know, robust flavor. I like to add a little honey. That's just me. You know, I always like to do that. Maybe a teaspoon. A little bit of black pepper. Okay. Just going to heat this up a little bit. It's just a dab. Alright, and then we're going to add our milk and cheeses and our flour. Let's just first get this hot and we will be right back. We're going to add a cup of milk. It's 1% milk. You could put a cup and a half, but I sort of like to just put a little bit. That's not even a cup, it's about 3/4 of a cup. I'm going to add more. I just like to do it a little bit at a time. So we'll get this heated up, and then we'll add some flour, and then we will be back. I like to warm the milk before I put the flour in. It's just because when you warm milk, it takes on a different culture, and it's important to do that because when you put the flour in, it starts to thicken up, but you want your milk to kind of culture into a more robust, thickened milk before you put, it's actually a very important step, before you put in the flour. You could use white flour, is fine. This is on a pretty low flame. I wouldn't even say it's half, it's probably between a low flame. You know, it's milk, you don't want it to burn. So it's on a low flame, maybe a little higher than a very low flame. Sort of the same you would cook a sauce at. You just heat it up. See, you can actually see it's changing colors, sort of thickening, and that's sort of kind of what you want before you put in the flour, which will only probably be a couple of tablespoons. Make sure you drain your spinach in a strainer. And this looks about ready to put the flour in. I'm going to shut the gas off for a second. Get the flour here. And it's just going to be a couple of tablespoons. I'm probably going to add a little more milk. That's about a couple of tablespoons. You don't put much, just a little bit. You don't want to over thicken. You don't want to over thicken your little sauce here. And even though we're putting a little more milk in, I'm going to use the whisker on this because I really want it to kind of get in there. See, it's getting a little thick already. So this is when I add a little bit more milk. I guess all in all, it's about a cup and a third of milk to a cup and a half. It's how creamy you want it. Oh wow, this is looking great. And we will be right back. You just want to get the lumps out, and you just kind of even tilt it a little, and you just sort of get those lumps out. Yeah, see, I like to tilt it, and then you could really whisk it and get all those lumps out before you put the cheese in. And this, my friends, is the finished product. We have cream spinach. We have a butternut squash salad with all types of different salad, kale, cabbage, whole bunch of stuff, beet salad with the vinaigrette on top, and of course, our famous brisket. Dean Curry, cooking healthy for you at Rising Star Enterprise for Wellbeing. Have a great day and even better tomorrow.